Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Think retirement planning ends when you roll over your 401k to an advisor? Well, guess what? It's just the beginning.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
In 2002, after watching my clients suffer through 3 straight years of stock market losses, I made up my mind to create a retirement planning process unlike anything else out there. One, to better put me and my clients on a consistent track of monitoring their money, not just when they retired, but as they moved through retirement. A process where our clients and my staff could monitor their money to be sure that it was meeting their long-term goals for the long haul. Now, in 2002, this process to monitor savers' progress through retirement was a huge undertaking, seeing as though back then nobody was doing it. Oh, sure, advisors have always had quarterly or annual meetings to talk about their clients' investments, but that is not what I would call retirement planning. As we'll discuss today, retirement planning is much more than just rolling your 401k over to an advisor for them to invest. In fact, in my over 20 years in focusing solely on retirement planning, I have discovered that retirement planning is more of an art than it is a science, which is why today, after working with thousands of savers over these past 20 years of specializing in retirement planning, what I've discovered is there is one crucial step in the process that the vast majority of advisors leave out, one that is crucial for you to be worry-free not just today, but through retirement, called monitor your progress. So, let's get started. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning process specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we share with you the secret step to our proprietary Worry-Free Retirement, let me introduce 3 folks who sure know how to monitor this show's progress each week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender. Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson, and our associate producer who seems to be out again, Derek, where is Miss Meek and Mild Mary Beth Combs?
Shh, she's asleep, boss.
Okay, let's get started. Let's say you're 65 years of age, getting ready to retire and realize that you have no clue what to do with your tax-infested 401k, nor who to trust with it. Problem is, you don't have a game plan with your money and how much you can now spend of it. You don't have a clue when to start Social Security, and you sure aren't sure about all those darn taxes you're going to owe on that 401k when you go to take it out. And finally, you might be nervous as a cat as to what your spouse will have to live on should you die before they do. So what do you do to get advice? What most savers do: Google around on the internet to find an advisor, maybe respond to one of those free dinner seminar invitations you keep getting bombarded with. How about this? Attend a class at a local university and hope that listening to an advisor in a classroom is the answer. And worst but not least is a too-good-to-be sales pitch from a financial advisor that you fall for. All the while, never actually receiving a written game plan which will allow you and your advisor to quickly and accurately monitor your progress in and through retirement. Pretty sad when you think about it. All the time and effort you put into saving all of this money just for someone else to reap the rewards of it. But I have good news, because today I'm going to share with you how we at Tony Walker Financial have cracked the code on helping savers monitor their progress, not just at retirement, but all the way through it. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. You know, we care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 2,000 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. If I asked you to name the 3 worst consecutive years of losses in the stock market, you'd probably respond 2008. But we have to look at something between 2008 and 2010. Actually, in 2009 and 2010, the market went back up. So although 2008 was a terrible year, for 3 consecutive years, this might surprise you. Derek, let's put that up. Actually, it was 2000, 2001, and 2002. So why do so many savers forget how bad these 3 years were? Well, for one, in the year of 2000, most baby boomers were years away from retirement, and since they were years away from retirement, the response from Wall Street to hang in there was just fine, seeing as though they knew eventually the stock market would come back, which it did. Me, as an advisor, I took a different take and realized that I didn't like losing my clients' money for 3 straight years, so I took a different path, one that included a lot of personal time and money traveling around the country to learn from some of the brightest minds in the country on how to better serve the retirement needs of savers. For instance, in 2002, for 3 straight years, I traveled every quarter to Chicago to study under then founder Mr. Dan Sullivan of the Strategic Coach Program. During this time, I also flew for a full year back and forth to San Diego, learning from goal-setting guru Mr. Brian Tracy, and included in all this learning was a full year spent each quarter traveling to Atlanta to meet and learn from well-known CPA, Mr. Ed Slott. And finally, last but not least, I spent a great deal of time traveling around studying under in my opinion, one of the brightest financial minds I know, the founder of Leap Systems, Mr. Bob Castellone. So why would I voluntarily spend so much of my personal time and money learning from all of these different folks with different views and money? Well, because of the following advice I got from my late great father-in-law, Mr. Bill Moore, back in 1984, who taught me to, first of all, remain independent, never stop learning, and always put the client's needs ahead of your own. Now, after several years of thought-provoking study and hard work, I arrived at what I now call the 5-step process called the Worry-Free Retirement. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick look at this and kind of go through the first 4 steps, which quite frankly, any advisor I guess could try to pull off, and then leading up to the most important step, step 5. So first of all, the first step is called clarify your vision, where myself, as 38 years in the financial trenches, will meet with prospective clients to help them figure out what it is they're looking for and how we can help. That's the first step of our process. The second step is our assessment. Now, this free assessment is unlike anything out there because we use our proprietary worry-free retirement planning software, which allows the prospective client to see what we're talking about, how and when to use the money, and then, of course, they can think about it. There's no obligation or cost to get this free assessment. Next, and I like this part of our process, we're very low-key, no pressure. We want the client to fully understand this assessment before they commit to the game plan. And this is where the rubber meets the road, because not only will we help set up the game plan, we'll help implement the game plan. In other words, we will do the rollover calls to move your 401k plans over. We'll fill out all the necessary paperwork to transfer accounts over. We'll do everything at no out-of-pocket cost to get everything over to Tony Walker Financial. So quite frankly, if we just look at those 4 steps, in most cases, from what I can gather, that's where everything stops. In other words, really what's going on out there, folks, is the financial world wants your money. They use steps like these to get your money, but after that, the process is over. In other words, what are you going to use, especially if you don't even have a written game plan, to understand how to monitor your progress and meet the changes that are going to come your way? Well, we figured that out in our fifth step, something we've continually been working on and refining, and it's called Monitor Your Progress. And right now with us via Zoom in our Bowling Green office is a very new employee at Tony Walker Financial, Mr. TJ Reagan, who we're going to ask a few questions about his former profession, what he's learned from Tony Walker Financial, and also how his parents have now become clients of Tony Walker Financial, and how he, as an adult child plus working at Tony Walker Financial, has really opened up his eyes to this process we use. So good morning, TJ.
Morning, Tony.
Well, first off, TJ, briefly share your background prior to joining us at Tony Walker Financial.
Before joining Tony Walker, I was in banking for about 15 years, did several different things there. And then for the last about 3 years, I've been in tax preparation.
Yeah, so you mentioned the tax preparation business. Explain in your view, TJ, since you've been working with us and all the tax planning that we do, the difference between tax preparation, which is what you used to do, and now tax planning and income planning at Tony Walker Financial.
Well, tax planning and tax preparation are completely different. Tax preparation, you have the whole picture. You're doing someone's taxes. You're telling them if they're getting a refund or if they owe the government some money at the end of the year. Tax planning, you give the information that the client gives you, and you basically make recommendations on tax withholding at the federal and state level.
And one of the projects you're assisting us with, which has been very helpful that you're here at this time that we're using this project, is something we call the Income Planning Worksheet. In fact, I have one right here. And why is this so important for retirees in your view, and as we're trying to get a better handle on just making sure we monitor their progress through retirement?
Well, when our clients are given a game plan, we know that some of the clients will go by the game plan as is, and some of them won't for whatever the case may be because, well, life happens. This allows us to monitor that progress and make contact with the client to say, hey, we need to review things, or, everything's going up as we thought.
That's great. And this is on a lighter note, but I'm really, really encouraged by this, that your parents decided to meet with us and work with us. And I know you've been in those meetings, so it's got to be kind of interesting to be in the meetings and working on your parents' information, but also being the adult child of now your parents who have this game plan. How do you feel about that at this stage?
Well, I think my parents love it. They know their money's going to be secured and monitored. My dad, he read the Annuities Made Easy in Life, Live Well, Die Broke in a few days after his first meeting. And he was sold on annuities from that point forward. He wants all his money invested that way. And being an adult child, I think it's very important because had something happened to one of my parents, I don't know that the other one would have had a full grasp on everything going on. It's just, there's too many moving parts.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to work with your parents, and obviously, TJ, appreciate everything you're doing there at Tony Walker Financial. And we really look forward to this new income planning worksheet we've created to help monitor our clients' progress. In the meantime, you get back to work and you make it a good day.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 36 years, I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and certainly not to make light of this particular gentleman who's obviously looking at his 401k going down. Years ago, when I experienced some losses in the market back in 2000, we got this little handy-dandy cup from Wall Street, and it says you can either buy, sell, hold, or jump, and then you spin the little die to see what comes next. Just thought that was kind of cute. Anyway, back to our Tony in the trenches, and this is an interesting one coming from Phil in northern Tennessee, who apparently has a 40-foot high TV antenna that allows him to watch our show each Sunday morning out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. And he asked the following. He says, Tony, I've been watching your TV show for years and was wondering, with you recording a new show each week, where do you get all these ideas for each show, and who the heck writes all of your scripts? Well, first of all, I do write 100% of the show's content. However, I get my material from the many savers I meet each week as we continually build out our process, and then you saw that in the last segment, which is ever-changing as the retirement landscape changes. I guess you could say having my finger on the pulse of so many savers not only motivates me to keep writing good and compelling educational material, but it also allows me to know that I'm helping people worry less about money so they can beat their worries later on. Earlier I mentioned all of the great mentors I've had over the years, but prior to the stock market correction of 2000, I also was fortunate enough to receive degrees from both the American College and also the College for Financial Planning. Two wonderful institutions for higher learning for studies, but they were in the field of estate and financial planning. Unfortunately, neither of these courses of study taught me anything about retirement planning, which is why I had to learn to do it on my own. You see, financial planning is the practice of basically setting goals, running this equation you're about to learn more about, and then investing money based on what the math tells you to do. The problem is, as my mentor Bob Castellone once says, math is not money and money is not math. So let me explain first of all on the whiteboard what these symbols mean in the equation and the problems we run into if you try to follow the math. First of all, the W in a financial planning equation, which again, we don't do this, stands for wealth. Okay, so for instance, you might say, Tony, I want a goal of having $1 million at a certain age. Well then, depending on your age and what you're wanting, the T stands for time. So in other words, if you're back in the 2000 year and you're 42 years of age and you're going to retire at 62, obviously you've got 20 years on your side for us to run this calculation. R stands for rate, in other words, the rate of return. And this is what scares me to death because there's people out there, especially a lot of these financial entertainers, who are constantly going on about 10 and 12% you can get in the stock market. Folks, for retirement planning, as we're going to see, this is dangerous advice at best. And finally, so let's say you got the wealth goal, the time goal, the rate of return. The last goal you're satisfying or solving for in this equation is what we call money supply. So the biggest one that ought to jump out at you that shows how wacky this is and why you can't follow financial planning and retirement planning is R. Again, we're recording this show on July 6th, 2022. And if you had been assuming you're making 8 or 9% a year all the way through retirement and you had all of your money in the market, guess what? Your plan is shot. It's down 30%, and more than likely, there's no way you're going to be able to meet your objectives. The problem is, if you don't have a game plan, your goose is really cooked. All right? So let's take an example of somebody that I've been working with over the years and to see how we're dealing with this. Well, first of all, back several years ago, and I'm changing the names to protect the innocent, this person had a 401k of about $500,000, and their employer allowed them to roll over $400,000 to Tony Walker Financial in our split IRA concept, which we put some of that with Charles Schwab. Now, let me say this. A lot of you don't realize this. If you're over the age of 59 and a half and still working, most 401ks will let you go ahead and roll that over to safer territory with someone like us, either all of it or part of it, which they allow this gentleman to take out part of it. Keep in mind, this gentleman's retiring at the end of July. In addition to that, he's eligible for a lump sum pension of another $200,000. But again, he cannot get that money until he terminates employment, but that's going to come over into one of our buckets through our split IRA concept. Now here's what's interesting. This $400,000 we were able to work with, that leaves another $100,000 still in his 401k. Again, at the end of July, the employer and the custodian is going to allow him to go on and move over to our split IRA concept. And he is looking forward to retirement, except what? Well, except we did put some money in our Charles Schwab platform. Well, who's Charles Schwab? Well, Charles Schwab are the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, the CDs. They're just like your 401k. They're different than all the annuities we offer through the split IRA concept. Annuities are protected. The Charles Schwab platform can lose value, and it's gone down a little bit. So he's a little nervous. Well, fortunately, we had this other bucket out here. It's called Money in the Bank. When we first started working, he had about $50,000 to $60,000 there, and he wanted to invest that. And I said, Mr. Jones, here's the thing. You're getting ready to retire in a year or so, and since I don't know what the market's going to do or nobody else knows what it's going to do, we've got to be careful here because if we have a downturn in the market right about the time you retire, we're going to need to grab our money somewhere where we don't have any losses. And fortunately, we've got that money over there. So what he's going to do, we've already rearranged a few things here to correct some things and get him back on track, but he's going to be able to use that after-tax cash that's been over there protected at the bank to meet any contingencies or emergencies. So the moral to the story, folks, is this is not about math. This is not about retirement calculators. It's not about goofy equations. It's about having a process with a local retirement planning firm that not only has the first 4 steps, which most people do have somewhat of a 4-step process, but more importantly can prove to you that you're going to have a written game plan, and secondly, to have that written game plan monitored by professionals who know what they're doing in the field of retirement planning. So that's you right now. Maybe you're retired, retiring soon. Maybe you feel like you've got an advisor and you realize, you know what, they just sold me a bunch of stuff. I don't have a game plan and I sure don't have a way to monitor my progress. Why don't you do this right now? Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button, and we'll be happy to set up a free, no obligation 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And if it warrants, meet you in person at either our Louisville, Bowling Green, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, the last several weeks we've been talking a lot about the Bible and this sowing and reaping, and now we're getting ready to introduce something that fits right in with that about roses and thorns. Good stuff coming your way. Let me take my little Wall Street cup and get me some more coffee. I'll be right back. Do you own an annuity purchased prior to 2015? If so, you may be missing out on the many benefits that modern-day annuities can offer. You know, over the years, things have certainly changed in the world of finance, and guess what? Annuities have too. To learn more about the modern-day annuities we offer at Tony Walker Financial, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started, or call the toll-free number on your screen. You wouldn't go through major surgery without getting a second opinion, would you? Well, of course not. And neither should you blindly trust your life savings to the first advisor you meet. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for more than 37 years I've been providing free second opinions, and I'd like to do the same for you. To get your free second opinion, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Over the past several weeks, we've talked about this biblical concept of working hard, saving hard, all in hopes of one day reaping what you sow. And as we record this show on July 6, 2022, many of you have sowed your life savings into the stock market vis-a-vis your 401k plan, and now you're feeling the prickling of the thorns that have exposed themselves, called risk. And unlike the 3 straight years of stock market losses you might have experienced between 2000 and 2002, at a time when you didn't really need to rely on the 401k because you weren't in retirement, 20 years later and 20 years older, now that you are retired or wanting to retire in the very near future, the fear of this stock market is not good when it comes to feeling worry-free in retirement. You were hoping at this point in life that the 401k would provide you maybe a bed of roses, and instead it looks like it's coming up all thorns. Oh, speaking of expecting life to give you roses instead of thorns, the Bible has a great deal to say on the matter. In fact, in Jeremiah 12:13 it says, "They have sown wheat and have reaped thorns. They have strained," or in other words, exhausted themselves to no profit. Might be how you're feeling right now as you look at your 401k down 20 to 30% in just a few short months. Oh, by the way, in researching the issue of roses and thorns on the internet, I learned that roses don't have thorns at all, but they're called prickles. These prickles, which God has placed on the stem of the roses, serves 2 important functions. 1, to protect the roses from predators who wish to devour them and eat them, and 2, to help the roses latch onto other plants so that the roses might grow. Quite remarkable indeed. And just as remarkable is that God gives the people that He loves both roses and thorns as well. Thorns to protect us, and thorns to help us grow personally and spiritually. Check it out in 2 Corinthians 12:7 through 10, where Paul says, "Because of the extraordinary greatness of the revelations for this reason, to keep me from exalting myself, there was given to me," look at this, "a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from exalting myself." So let's stop right there. Just 6 months ago, you were probably feeling pretty proud of yourself for the tremendous growth of your 401k. Am I right? But just about that time, you confidently approach retirement, and now you see your 401k kind of looking more like a 201k. But I digress. Let's keep going to verse 8. Concerning this, Paul continues, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might leave me. Nope, folks, I hate to tell you this, no matter how much you plead with me or any other financial advisor who currently has your money in the stock market, no one knows when this thing will correct itself. And let me repeat that. No one. All right, Derek, let's keep going to the next verse. As we look at the next verse, verse 9, Paul responds. And God responds to him by saying this, my grace is sufficient for you. Look at this, for power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, he goes on to say, therefore, I will rather boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. And then verse 10, he finally says, I'm going to delight in weaknesses, in insults, and distresses, and persecutions, and difficulties, all on behalf of Christ. For Paul says, when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Moral of the story, just when you think life is a bed of roses, God tosses you a few thorns. Now, why is this? Well, I think it's to prove to us that we need His love and affection, and yes, His protection. And that maybe you right now, maybe the thorn God has given you might be the pain of losing a spouse, losing a child, maybe the loss of money, or right now the loss of confidence in others. Whatever the thorn, know that God has placed it there for your good and His glory. And that, my friend, is some encouraging news you and I can take to the bank. Amen? Speaking of hoping for a rosy retirement, but instead finding yourself getting pricked to death by a declining 401k plan, or maybe even pricked by those low interest rates on your money over at the bank, this might be a good time to get a second opinion from someone who has been working in the field of retirement planning for over 20 years. Someone who you can trust that knows how to enjoy the roses while you still can, but in a realistic fashion that knows that the thorns will one day surely come our way. Maybe you're watching your 401k lose much of what it gained. Maybe you're worried about the inflation and the high cost of gasoline and other goods and services. Maybe you're that person who, after watching this show, realizes that you have no game plan in place to not only use and enjoy this money while you still can, but worse than that, no possible way to monitor your progress through retirement. So here's what I would suggest. If that's you, if you're looking for somebody just to get a second opinion, maybe to talk about your 401k or other assets, why don't you do this right now? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and once you get there, you're going to click on that Let's Get Started button. Now, that information will be confidentially sent to our offices in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and then I will see that information personally, and if it warrants, we will set up a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. Then after we talk, if we need to, we'll be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. If you're not comfortable sharing information over the internet, no problem. Just call the toll-free number on your screen and tell them you'd like to set up a free phone call with yours truly, and I'll be happy to talk to you about your situation. Well, that's all the time we have today. Next week on our show, we're going to have our own Heather Hughes, fellow fiduciary out of Bowling Green, some of the most common questions we get and how this new system we have in place to monitor our clients' program and their process is a real game changer. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.